Since states and school districts began banning cell phones in the classroom, new data showing it could be helping students when it comes to test scores and focus. That study from the National Bureau of Economic Research looked at one school district in Florida. Here's ABC's Elizabeth Schulze.
This new study, which has not yet been peer-reviewed, uses data from one of the biggest school districts in the country in Florida. It shows that after a phone ban there took effect, students' test scores significantly improved, attendance went up, and classrooms reported higher engagement.
Amazon pushing back on a report in the New York Times saying the e-commerce giant plans to replace more than 500,000 jobs with robots or automated technology by the year 2033.
A spokesperson for Amazon says the New York Times report paints an incomplete and misleading picture of the company's plans, adding the story appears to reflect the perspective of just one team and doesn't represent the company's overall hiring strategy. The Times' original story, citing interviews and internal Amazon documents, stated that by 2033, advancements in robotics and automation would allow the company to avoid hiring more than 600,000 people they would have otherwise needed. Mike Dubusky, ABC News.
The 2025 World Series now set. The Toronto Blue Jays squaring off against defending champions, the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Blue Jays beat the Seattle Mariners in Game 7 last night. Game 1 of the World Series is Friday night. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
4:05 now at News Talk KVNU, and I'm Will Feelright, bringing you our top local stories as we head into KVNU's For the People show. Well, patrons of the Cache County Library in Providence are actively fighting right now a proposal by County Executive George Daines that would cut the library's $250,000 annual budget, effectively closing the facility. Now facing a projected $7.6 million budget deficit for next year, Daines has recommended defunding the library, arguing that 80% of county residents are already paying property taxes for their municipal libraries and are being double taxed for the county service. Now, Library Director Brennan Sainsbury has confirmed that more than 1,400 messages, including those from a recent letter-writing campaign, have been sent to the county council opposing the cut. Now, Deputy Executive Kurt Webb's analysis shows that 70% of the county library's business right now is coming from cities, Providence, River Heights, and Millville, that do not fund their own municipal libraries. Now, council member David Erickson has said he supports the cut, while member Mark Hurd has argued that the facility is the only one available to all county residents for free. Now, the library funding cut is part of Daines' total recommended $2.8 million in budget reductions. The county council is scheduled to address the proposal at its next meeting coming up next Tuesday. In other news, a 12-year-old girl reported missing last week was safely recovered following a multi-agency search in Sanpete County, which led to a kidnapping charge against the adult man that was found with her. Sanpete County Sheriff Jared Buchanan said that the girl was reported missing last Tuesday morning after running away in her grandfather's stolen truck. Now, though the case didn't meet the criteria for an Amber Alert, police still issued an endangered missing juvenile alert and committed all hands on deck due to the juvenile's age. Now, the effort, which was aided by public tips, eventually led to the location of the truck near Richfield, leading to a high-speed chase. Now, the driver, Aiden Larson, a 20-year-old of Moroni, was apprehended after crashing that stolen truck into an RV park. Now, Larson, who the girl claimed was to be in a relationship, is now facing multiple charges, including evading, rape, and kidnapping under a Utah statute that applies when a juvenile under the age of 14 is found with an adult without parental permission. Now, the girl was safely returned to her parents. Larson, meanwhile, made his first appearance in court today in Richfield. And a Syracuse high school football player went into cardiac arrest during practice a month ago. It was a near-fatal incident that exposed a critical flaw in the school's emergency protocol. Now, sophomore Declan Harper collapsed during an offensive drill, prompting coaches to immediately begin CPR. Now, Coach Randy Hicks described the 7 minutes of waiting as terrifying, as Coach Logan Donaldson said the team wasn't sure if they would be able to revive Harper until police arrived with an automated external defibrillator, an AED. Now, Principal Brad Chappelle confirmed that there was an AED on site, but it was locked inside a press box and inaccessible to coaches. Now, Harper's sister, Ashlyn McIntosh, stressed the rarity of his survival and the life-saving potential of the device. Now, following the incident, the Davis School District has moved the AED to an easily accessible location. Meanwhile, Harper is back on the sidelines after beginning to recover. Well, it's been another gorgeous afternoon as we've enjoyed lots of sunshine, and it looks like this forecast is just going to continue to repeat over the next several days as we're going to enjoy clear skies heading into tonight as temperatures have been in the high 50s today. Tonight will drop into the low 30s and then be back into the mid 60s for tomorrow, low 60s coming for Thursday and Friday, but then a chance of storms for Saturday and into Sunday. And they're dedicated to keeping your home and business safe and dry. Talking about roof rescue when it comes to minor repairs or complete roof replacements, remember Roof Rescue online at roofrescueusa.com. I'm Will Feelright. I'll have another check of local news coming up at the bottom of the hour as KVNU News Time is now 4:09, and it's time for KVNU's For the People show next here on KVNU.
For over a decade, Roof Rescue has been safeguarding your homes with the finest roofing solutions. We understand the value of your time. That's why we're committed to replacing most roofs in just one day. With award-winning service, 100% guaranteed workmanship, and the best warranties in the industry, your watertight peace of mind is guaranteed. Call us today at 435-999-4268 or visit roofrescueusa.com and ask for the $250 off any roof replacement. Financing available? That's roofrescueusa.com.
KVNU Aggie Game Day on 102 FM, 610 AM, and at kvnutalk.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of winter coming, and your overgrown trees might not be ready. One heavy snowstorm can snap branches, damaging trees or worse, your home. Before winter hits, call Hall Tree Care. Sure, you can trim your own trees, but if you do it the wrong way, you can weaken your trees or even kill them by inviting pests or disease. Hall Tree Care's certified arborists know exactly how to trim your trees the right way. Call 760-6587 and get 10% off. That's 760-6587.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency, so we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com, and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. I'm Jason Williams. It is Tuesday, October 21st. 56 degrees here at the Radio Ranch, 4:11 in the afternoon. As Will said, expect a lot more of this week. Beautiful clear skies, sunny, deceptively warm looking through the windows, but pretty cool outside. Although tonight, likely not as cold as it got last night, and 40s, high 30s throughout the rest of the week. It looks pretty nice. Next Sunday night, though, it really sets in. Overnight low of 28 a week from now-ish. So, Trader Joe's fans, new location opens this Friday. The company announced Tuesday that they have officially set this opening date. Ribbon cutting will be at 8:55 a.m. at the Riverdale Trader Joe's. and that will precede the official opening. It's located at 4060 South Riverdale Road, and the company said in its news release this morning that the staff, they basically got things done a little earlier than they expected. There was no official open date for the Riverdale store set yet, but they surprised everybody this morning. So first Trader Joe's north of Salt Lake City has officially announced 9 a.m. on Friday, the ribbon-cutting ceremony, and then shortly after that, they'll officially welcome the first customers into the store. Even if you're not a Trader Joe's fan, I recommend learning a little bit about them. There is a really cool book about, it's really about grocery stores and the overall, trade market. It was written before the pandemic, but it talks a lot about grocery store supply chains and things like that. And, even dabbles a little bit into the shrimp industry that really, I'm not overstating this a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead and call this supporting slavery, indentured servitude. If you are a shrimp eater, most likely that shrimp came through fishing endeavors that where these companies in other parts of the world lock people in with debt, and then they work to pay off their debt, but the companies make sure that never actually happens. It was horrifying, but that's just one chapter in the book. The book is called The Dark Miracle of the American Supermarket, The Secret Life of Groceries. And anytime someone brings up Trader Joe's, I think about this because a good portion of the first third of the book, they talk about the success of Trader Joe's. And it's a really interesting story because this was never planned to be an international chain. The first store opened and the owner thought, it was a success and thought that would kind of be the end of it. Happy to have that store be a success and his family making money, but he didn't expect at any point for this to become a huge thing. So Trader Joe's success, as told, so the author, Benjamin Lohr, actually sits down and talks with Trader Joe himself, and they talk about, what made them the success. But the short version, I don't want to ruin the book for anybody. If you're a fan of nonfiction, this is one that will really entertain you. And again, it's not all focused on Trader Joe's. They get into sharecropping on wheels. This is truck drivers that operate in a very unique way, usually in the Midwest, and the trucking industry at large. They talk about the absolute hoax that, at least at the time this book was written a few years ago, pre-pandemic, I think it was 2019 it was released, the organic label and fair trade label were absolutely meaningless. Now, they've tightened the screws on that a little bit. Now, if something says organic or fair trade, it's more than likely, at least, that it actually is, but at the time was not the case. The book also talks about the grocery stores themselves, the shelf space in a grocery store, and this nearly political battle that happens between product makers and distributors for that shelf space, and some of the tricks and tips that they use for new food businesses to get prime shelf space. Honestly, it's a fascinating book at a really complicated industry that we don't really think about because we go into the grocery store, we buy things on the shelves that we need, and we leave. We all have different habits. Some people like to do the once a week, fill up the grocery cart and spend a few $100 kind of grocery shopping. I know families out there, larger families, have to do this out of necessity because the kids eat a lot. When I was a kid growing up, it was every 2 weeks, and dating myself here, but I was handed a giant stack of quarters so that I wouldn't annoy my parents, so that I could sit and play the Donkey Kong arcade game right inside the door at the old Macy's location, and I was good at it. And then I would move to the magazine and book rack, and I would just spend my time there, and then they'd come and get me when they were done. But That was every 2 weeks, and it was a huge part of the monthly budget, I know, in my household growing up. Myself, as an adult, I'm more of the think of what I'm going to make and go buy it that day kind of person, which, as I understand it, actually makes me a millennial or even Gen Z, because that's how they shop. It's just how I like to do it. I'm not big on planning ahead too much. The staples. Once in a while, you hit the box stores and you load up on the staples too much. I once had to clear a whole shelf for mayonnaise once because I forgot I already bought some, and I bought 4 more. So that kind of stuff I do make, kind of a regular shopping trip for. But as far as the weekly meals, I am more of a buy day of, or buy a few days in advance, make it kind of person. Not a big load up the grocery cart and take it all home and pack 18 sacks into the house, 2 at a time. Not my thing. But the book talks about that a little bit, the habits of grocery store shopping and meeting different customers' needs. What happens if a store runs short on a very popular item is really interesting. It can actually forever change a person's shopping habits. One time of going to a store and not having the item that they always buy at that store available, they're out of it. They'll find it somewhere else, and they are more likely than not to continue shopping at the somewhere else location. And grocery stores know this, especially the big chains. It's a fascinating book. Again, it's called The Miracle of the American Supermarket, The Secret Life of Groceries by Benjamin Lohr, spelled L-O-R-R. And it's a fascinating book. But with Trader Joe's opening in Riverdale, again, the first third of the book talks about Trader Joe's and what made that. I mean, if you've ever been to a Trader Joe's, this is actually a pretty small grocery store, along the lines of maybe what you'd see, a little mom and pop grocery store in a small town somewhere in the rural areas of Illinois. But hey, it's now one of the most successful grocery chains in the U.S., and they are opening new stores frequently, every couple of years throughout the Intermountain West at least. And what makes them unique is really what they choose to buy to put on their shelves, and how they go about that is amazing. This was the first grocery store that actually said, this is one of the funny things. There was, not Trader Joe's in Utah, but Trader Joe's in other states where wine can be sold at a grocery store. Trader Joe's wine is famous or infamous, maybe. I don't know if it's good. I've never tried it, but I know it sells like gangbusters. But what's interesting about this is the way they were able to sell this $2 bottle of good enough wine for wine snobs is they would go to the wineries in Oregon and Northern California, and they knew Trader Joe. He'd heard that they always have these remnants. So when a winery makes a batch of wine. And this is also the case for other beer and spirits, and then also Coca-Cola does this as well in a lot of their manufacturing processes. It's an imperfect science volume-wise, and so especially with wine, where you're dependent on the grape harvest, kind of determines the volume that you're going to be bottling. It's never exact, and so they come to the end of these wine storage casks. And there's not enough to fill another full batch, another full shipment of bottles. And the cost of doing that for, 5, 10 bottles, 20 bottles is not worth it for them. So a lot of times this wine would then be sold to employees, dirt cheap, or put on, some sort of, there was like an underground trade market for this remnant wine. And Trader Joe went to him and said, what if I sign a contract with you to buy this remnant wine, dirt cheap, I'll relabel it because the wineries don't want to put their name on it, because by the time it gets to someone, it's not up to snuff. It's sat for a little bit too long. Maybe it's the end of a batch, which is sometimes not the best, but it's good enough for most people. Those who aren't, the swirl the glass and sniff it wine drinkers. And so Trader Joe went to him and said, I'll buy all of your remnants. This was big for the wineries because this was easier for them. They didn't have to find a way to get rid of it and they didn't have to waste it. They'd be guaranteed to make money off of it. A lot of them were just pouring it out and losing, quite a bit of money because of that, but it was just the nature of the business. And now here's this person who wants to buy every bit of it, every crop cycle, and they'll relabel it so your winery is not, on the hook if people don't like it. But yet you've made money. And so the wineries loved it. They signed the contract immediately, and Trader Joe's wine was born. But then Trader Joe went on and did that with shampoos and face creams and soaps and certain grocery products like their coffee. And it was a way, he said, originally I just was reading about all this waste, and I thought, someone could make money off of that because it's a good product. It's just not economical for these large manufacturers and distributors to use every bit of what they have. So a lot of it gets thrown away. A lot of it gets shopped off to, discount employee sales and things like that. But if you could make contracts to actually buy the remnants of a coffee bean shipment, they take the coffee beans and they put them all in the bags. But there's not enough left to really, so they have these machines that do, 1,000 bags at a time. But say you've got enough coffee beans left and you can't do 1,000 bags, and it's not worth reconfiguring the machine to do 300 bags, and so they scrap them. They sell them to someone else for other purposes. They're used in organic mulch and things like that. And Trader Joe comes to you and says, "Look, I'll pay a decent dollar for them because I'm going to make a lot of money off of this, and I'll just buy your remnants." So they did the same thing with their coffee. It's a fascinating story. And he did not expect this to be a huge success. He thought it would be regionally popular, and it was. But it's been hugely successful as a model for a grocery store. And a new one opens in Riverdale this Friday. 9 a.m. the ribbon cutting, and shortly after that, they'll open the doors for the first time and let people in. But again, talking about Trader Joe's, anytime it comes up, I think of this book. So if you're looking for an interesting read or listen, check out The Dark Miracle of the American Supermarket, The Secret Life of Groceries by Benjamin Lohr. And again, there is a section of the book that is not so joyfully interesting, and that is a section where he talks about the slave trade of the shrimp industry, something that still happens today. Benjamin Lohr, L-O-R-R, The Dark Miracle of the American Supermarket. It's available everywhere. And if you're inclined, get yourself down to the Riverdale Trader Joe's grand opening Friday morning. And we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People, talk about the big Dignity Conference in Salt Lake City yesterday, what people are saying after attending, especially considering the events that have taken place in Utah the last few months. We'll talk about it right after this.
Join us at Crow Mountain Coffee in Smithfield this Saturday, October 25th from 12 to 4. Grab a free cocoa, coffee, and snacks while supplies last, then enjoy music, pumpkin painting, and Halloween games the whole family will love. Plus, meet Aaron Rudy, candidate for Smithfield Mayor, and learn more about his vision for our community. It's all happening at Crow Mountain Coffee, just south of Smithfield Dental Care, this Saturday from 12 to 4.
Paid for and endorsed by Aaron Rudy, running for Smithfield City Mayor.
Betty, why are you packing your house up?
I'm ready to move. My home is so boring. There's no color on the walls, no pop.
I have the answer. Go see Castalite in Logan. They have several products to make your walls stand out. I just finished a wall with their Speedy Mason system. It was so easy and looks amazing.
Does this sound familiar to you? Refresh your home with affordable options at Castalite for brick, block, rock, paver, and tile. Go where the pros go. Online at Castalite.com.
Hey, Chuck, can you walk our listeners through the process of getting a signature loan from Dollar Loan Center and don'tbebroke.com?
You just need a couple things: a state-issued ID, a recent pay stub, proof of residence, the basics. You fill out a simple application in the store or on your phone if you like, and applying is free at the DLC. For a new customer, all this takes around 30 minutes and you're out the door. Cash in hand. Look, we even throw in the first week's interest for free. We're also a direct lender, not a lead generator that will just sell your information over and over. Be careful of that and always use a direct licensed lender like the DLC.
DLC lends up to $5,000 in minutes, and you can get your cash in person at one of our 70 locations, on our website, don'tbebroke.com, or even over the phone with one of our helpful, real staff members. You're gonna love Dollar Loan Center.
Licensed by the Utah Department of Financial Institutions. Subject to approval, limitations may apply. See website for details. The Above and Beyond Salute.
This is Jake. Is this Jake Ure?
It is.
I was wondering if we could treat you to free lunch.
Sure. All right.
Someone reached out to us and told us how you have run Bear River Mental Health for years. They have watched you spend decades serving people in our community who have mental health issues.
I've been very blessed to be there, and thank you for your recognition and taking care of people that take care of people.
The Above and Beyond Salute on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
I had no choice but to hear you. You stated your case.
Coming up, yesterday in Salt Lake City, there was a big Dignity Conference. We've talked about the Dignity Index many times here in the show. Tammy Pfeiffer, former Logan City Council member and school board representative for Northern Utah, education advisor to Governor Herbert. She's been involved in a lot of things. She's now working with Unite. This is a Shriver family project that launched something called the Dignity Index as a pilot program here in Utah several years ago. It rolled out nationwide shortly after the pilot concluded, and it's continuing to gain attention and steam throughout the United States. And it's especially in the focus after some recent events, the political assassination of Charlie Kirk here in Utah. Previous to that, the political assassination of Democratic state representatives in Minnesota, an attempt on one and tragically a successful assassination of another, and her husband and the family dog. And, of course, most recently, I think it's fair to call it political attack on an LDS church that in Michigan, man drove his truck into the church and then set it afire and shot 12 churchgoers who were there for services that Sunday morning, killing 4. These types of things get people thinking about, where we're at. And I'm saying this as someone who has never been a fan of politicians calling for civility. Mainly because you only have to scroll 2 or 3 tweets down further from a social media post of a politician calling for civility to see them not really promoting it themselves in this day and age. And so I oftentimes would eye roll, but I'm a fan of the Dignity Index. And they brought a lot of people to the stage for this conference yesterday. But we'll talk about how people are reacting, including some interesting comments from Natalie Gochner, the current director of the University of Utah's Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute and former cabinet member and an advisor to Governor Herbert, but also where they hope this goes and what the Dignity Index is all about. It's different from those superficial calls for civility. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Before we get to that, though, this is just a quick announcement, but I wanted everyone to get a chance to be a part of this because they're really hoping to get a pulse on Northern Utah, especially in this. But USU's Utah Women in Leadership Project, Dr. Susan Madsen and others from the project have been frequent guests here on the show. They've always been a powerhouse as far as research goes when it comes to women in the job market in Utah, women, the quality of life of women here in Utah. They've been instrumental in forming the legislature when it comes to the child care desert that Utah is still, unfortunately, enjoying the status of designation for. And recently the legislature kind of decided the Utah Women in Leadership Project would be the flagship for their research. There were many legislatively funded projects researching gender wage gaps and things like that here in Utah through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And they kind of scuttled all of that at the state level and said, look, we've got these research or nonprofits at universities throughout the state. Let's let them handle the research and then report to us. So that's where the Utah Women in Leadership Project currently sits, is kind of an information service for the legislature and the public. And they are going public with a survey invitation. Now, this is a lengthier survey. They say that the survey will take you about 10 to 20 minutes to complete. And Dr. Susan Madsen is heading up this particular research study. But what they're looking for is they want to explore more deeply, according to our friend Amy Anderson, Logan City Council member, also a member of the Sunshine Terrace Board, and frequent guest here on the show. She's now working with the Utah Women in Leadership Project in kind of a spin-off project called A Bolder Way Forward. And through that project, they've put this together, and they're encouraging everyone, men and women, to take a quick survey. Well, a bit of a longer survey, honestly. 10 to 20 minutes is what they think it will take. And they're asking everyone to be a part of this. You can learn more at the Utah Women in Leadership Project website, utwomen.org. But I've also posted a link to the survey from Qualtrics. This is a Utah-based data collection company. I shouldn't say data collection. Utah-based survey and research company. And they're inviting everyone to take part in this survey. The purpose of this research, by the way, is to understand more public perceptions related to awareness, understanding, general attitudes and concerns around the challenges that women and girls face in the state of Utah. So they want the opinion of men on this one as well. And they're asking everyone to take the survey. They're hoping to get more than 4,000 Utahns at least participating in this. They'd like to set it at 10,000. And the more people they get a chance to hear from, the better the end report will be. And more opinions, the broader the picture. So this is being run through the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University and the Utah Women in Leadership Project. And it's part of a new initiative called A Bolder Way Forward, hoping to inform lawmakers who have said they want to address certain things in Utah, like the child care gap, child care desert, and the gender pay gap and things like that. But they're unsure where to start. And they don't want to make things worse by trying to help, which, as I say, the legislature specializes in. So hats off to the legislature for wanting to be informed first, but this is the only way they get there. So they're asking all Utahns, men and women, again, to take this Utah Women in Leadership survey, just asking for general attitudes, comprehension, what people know and don't know about the state of work for women, what challenges women and girls in Utah face, young women, but also adult women. And they're asking anyone age 18 and older to participate. So again, more information at utwomen.org. There's a link to the survey there on the homepage, but you can also follow the 2025 Fall Survey launch there on the homepage. But you can also follow the link I've posted on our Facebook page. And again, the more responses they get, the better the information they'll be able to pass on to the legislature ahead of the legislative session. So thanks to Amy Anderson for sending that information along, that announcement coming just earlier today that the survey was live. On the other side, we'll talk about the Dignity Index conference that took place in Salt Lake City yesterday, what people are saying about this very unique push in light of some, frankly, horrifying events that have happened over just this last summer throughout the United States and here in Utah even, and what we can do about it. That's next after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. A freshman representative in the Utah legislature named Clint Okerlund is planning to file a bill for this year's legislative session that would actually limit the number of bills that lawmakers can introduce. Now, he argues that the current volume is fiscally irresponsible and often leads to poorly vetted laws. Now, the Utah State Legislature frequently sees more than 1,000 bills numbered each session, and Okerlund says that sheer volume of bills consumes massive amounts of taxpayer money through drafting, policy analysis, and agency input. Now, Okerlund said that it's somewhat ironic to be actually introducing a bill that would limit bills, but he says there's just too many, and it often adds to difficulty, especially towards the final weeks of the session, as lawmakers don't even have time to review all of the legislation. Now, conservative political policy advocate Marianne Christensen agrees with the idea in merit. She says that fewer bills would ensure that they are vetted better. Now, Workerland suggests a cap of around 6 bills per House member, 9 bills per senator, with some exceptions for budget and repeal legislation. Meanwhile, a 20-year-old man was arrested Sunday night after an argument with his girlfriend led him to crash his vehicle into a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints building in West Valley City. Now, the crash happened at about 7 o'clock. West Valley City Police Sergeant Adam Rose said that the driver, identified as Gabriel Gutierrez, and his 19-year-old girlfriend were arguing over a text message which escalated to them grappling over phones in the car. Now, Gutierrez claimed that his girlfriend grabbed the steering wheel, causing the crash, but investigators could not confirm the claim. Now, although people were inside the church at the time, no injuries were reported. Damage to the building is estimated at around $20,000. Now, Gutierrez was taken into custody, booked into jail, where he's facing a misdemeanor charge of a DUI, property damage, and driving on a suspended or revoked license. And finally, the American Civil Liberties Union of Colorado has filed a federal lawsuit against immigration officials alleging illegal and discriminatory arrest practices. Now, the lawsuit, which was filed earlier this month, challenges the warrantless detention of immigrants, including University of Utah student Caroline Goncalves. Goncalves, a Brazilian immigrant detained for 15 days back in June, and 3 other plaintiffs were allegedly arrested without a proper determination of their legal status or flight risk. Now, the ACLU charges that ICE agents are indiscriminately stopping and arresting people with brown skin in order to meet federal demands. Now, DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin, though, firmly denied the accusations, calling the racial profiling claims categorically false. Well, it's been a gorgeous afternoon, and we're going to continue to enjoy sunny, clear skies the rest of the day, as temperatures have been in the high 50s today. Even better weather coming tonight and tomorrow, as overnight we'll see temperatures drop into the low 30s. Wednesday, temperatures will be in the mid-60s. And then Thursday and Friday, going to settle back into the low 60s. Going to remain sunny and clear, though, through the rest of the week. It isn't until the weekend when we start to see a change in the forecast with some storms, bringing a possibility of some rain on Saturday and Sunday. And weather brought to you by Logan Extermination. They can help make sure you trim your fruit trees correctly so that you have a better harvest next fall. If you don't know how to do it, call the professionals at Logan Extermination today at 752-8450. Will Feel-Right with your KVNU News headlines.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. President Trump pressing for his Justice Department to pay roughly $230 million as a settlement for investigations he faced during the Biden administration and during his first term in office. That, according to sources familiar with the matter. ABC's Catherine Faulders has more.
We don't know if he's picking up the phone every day and calling Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, and saying, get this done. But the reality is the people who would make these decisions and sign off on it are the people who represented him in the investigations that he is seeking settlement money over.
Plans are off for President Trump to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary or the immediate future. The White House says Secretary of State Marco Rubio held a call earlier with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, calling it productive. ABC News has learned Lavrov made it clear Russia opposed President Trump's suggestion to freeze the fighting in Ukraine on the front line. The government shutdown dragging into a 4th week. The Senate will take up another vote again tomorrow, aiming to end the shutdown. This is ABC News.
Want to set yourself apart from the competition? The Leadership MBA at Utah State University will help you lead companies and drive change in your organization. You can attend in person in Logan on Thursday evenings or take an interactive online class. Complete your MBA in as little as a year. Apply before November 1st to be considered for a January start. Contact the MBA office for a waiver of the $55 application fee. Learn more at utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan, this is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
From ABC News, Wall Street Now. Market indexes were mixed in Tuesday's trading as companies released summer profit reports. The Dow was up 218 points at the close. The S&P 500 was flat, gaining less than a half a point. And the tech-heavy Nasdaq lost 37 points as tech stocks cooled off from recent rallies. General Motors, Coca-Cola, and RTX all gained after quarterly reports beat analyst expectations. The price of gold tumbled more than 5% after hitting an all-time high on Monday. Gold rose as some investors turned away from equities and bought precious metals as a safe haven and buy during political and economic uncertainty. Warner Brothers Discovery has signaled that it may be open to selling all or parts of its business. The home of HBO, CNN, and DC Studios said it is reviewing strategies after multiple parties expressed interest in buying the whole company and Warner Brothers specifically. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. The federal government is undergoing sharp changes during the current partial shutdown, but are things like layoffs pushing the legal envelope? Also, more and more Americans are turning to grocery stores for prepared meals. Hear how supermarkets are making the pivot for us. And do you really need to redo the driveway when listing your home for sale? Wednesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Coming up in hour two, recently announced, now outgoing member of the Cache County Council, Barbara Tidwell, taking the lead on a pay hike proposal for council members. This coming as the Cache County Council is facing an estimated $7+ million budget shortfall, and the county executive has suggested some ways to trim the budget, including cutting all funds for the county library, which is getting quite a bit of community pushback. A controversial suggestion to raise salaries while facing a budget shortfall and hinting at property tax increases. But we'll talk about kind of stepping back and having a less emotional reaction to this type of thing, which I'll be honest was my first reaction. What? Because there are some really good reasons to make sure your elected officials, especially a legislative position, are decently compensated. So we'll talk about that in hour two. Right now, though, this happened yesterday. I was invited, and because of some last-minute schedule changes in the day job, I wasn't able to attend, and I'm hoping I get a chance to go to the next one. And the reason I say that is that if you're a longtime listener of this show, you know that you can actually hear my eyes roll and pop out of my head and bounce around in the corners of the studio here anytime someone says, it makes a call for civility. And the reason for that is no matter how well-intended and sincere civility callers for always are, you don't have to wait very long before an elected official who calls for civility to completely make a hypocrite out of themselves, especially in this day and age. But also, civility sometimes is also used as a way to silence opposition. As someone will say something absolutely horrendous, just horrific comment, and people will yell at that person for saying this horrific thing, and then that person will say, "Oh, you're being uncivil." Well, yeah, we're being. Did you hear what you just said? Now, there's definitely a line, and that line at times I think has moved too far in the reactionary direction. This makes my friends on the left kind of mad sometimes. I think we've gotten too sensitive about policing certain words. One of my favorite episodes of South Park is an episode that uses, I'll be honest with you, a homophobic slur, I think 117 times in the episode. But they do that to make a point, which is these are words, and you choose whether they have power or not, or whether the person using them to try and hurt you verbally has that power. It's an important message, even if it's an extremely offensive and in poor taste episode, which, I mean, that's what South Park specializes in, right? If you've ever seen an episode, poor taste is their thing. And if you're a fan of that, the show is very funny to you. If you're not a fan of that, you will hate the show. And that's always been South Park. But the message they're getting across, I think, is so important, and we forget that. I think it's one of the most harmful to some of their more serious proposals part of the progressive movement in the United States is sometimes they latch on to Me Too is an example. That was so perfect. I mean, taking down some of these creeps like Harvey Weinstein and some big-name people in the news that apparently were pretty handsy with their female staff in the newsrooms. And those people should be put in a spotlight and made fun of, you know? It's not the 1950s when women were only in the office to deliver coffee and get shoulder rubs. And there were so many men that apparently didn't get that message. So I loved the Me Too stuff. And then people started taking it to the point where Al Franken, a senator, had to step down because he posed in a comedic photo with another comedian that you know, granted, probably wasn't in good taste, but have you ever seen a funny comedian that always was acting in good taste? No. And don't get me wrong, Joe Rogan ain't a comedian. His whole comedians tell truth to power. No, Joe Rogan is just a guy that doesn't ask enough questions and then skirts for accountability for saying dumb things by saying, I was just asking questions. Well, maybe ask a few more before you talk, Joe. There are very good comedians that specialize in conveying very thoughtful things you'll think about after their routine is done in an offensive or at least distasteful way. It's possible. It can be done. So my point here, I guess, is that you have to be careful with this stuff. Drawing these lines of, you know, words that are not acceptable, I think it's good to a certain point. If you know someone that's upset because they can't freely say the N-word, that person needs a hobby. And that's really the only thing to say to them. If an entire part of the United States population finds it offensive for you to use the word, you'll live, right? And we should at least have that level of respect for each other. That said, counterexample, there are times when it's just decided upon that a certain phrase or word is offensive and we shouldn't say it anymore, and maybe it really isn't that big of a deal in the first place. These two things can coexist. Everybody looks at this as black and white, you know, and I tell you, honestly, no matter what, if you are super upset you can't say a word, you need a hobby. But it's still worth exploring this when we're talking about civility. What are we talking about? And again, many times I've seen elected officials who have said something just completely out to lunch, and then everybody's piled on them and said, this happened to State Senator John Johnson recently. He made a absolutely embarrassing YouTube documentary on the black experience. And this is the whitest man that has ever lived. And I say that as someone who calls him a friend. I've known John for years as a teacher and as someone who worked in the IT world before then. It is not his area of expertise, the black experience. And he got piled on for that. And you know what he said? He said, everyone's being so uncivil. Well, I mean, is that really the biggest concern here, John? My point is, be careful. That said, yesterday's conference I'm sad to miss, and I want everyone to explore this because it's one of the few movements along these lines that doesn't go there to lecturing and policing in a hypocritical or a convenient way. It's called the Dignity Index. They held a big conference in Salt Lake yesterday. Former Logan City Council member and school board representative Tammy Pfeiffer is one of the prominent figures behind this. She's been a frequent guest here on our show. And the reason I like the Dignity Index and wanted to attend their conference yesterday, well, two reasons. One, I love it because it's just an 8-point scale. The Dignity Index is literally that. It's this card you can print out, And when you're watching a debate or listening to an elected official talk or thinking about your own social media posts or things you say at the family barbecue, you can rank the words you use and the words you hear other people use on this 8-point scale from, phrases and words that have a high level of dignity and phrases and words that have a low level of dignity. One of the best examples I can think of is Phil Lyman, former failed 3 times over candidate for governor in Utah, has been sometimes irrationally critical of Spencer Cox, Governor Cox, because of course he lost to him 3 times, and Phil got himself into trouble recently with the wackier Twitter right. Because Phil was saying that there was a conspiracy. He didn't believe there was a single shooter behind the Charlie Kirk assassination. Now, this is where Phil lives in the conspiracy world. This is like his 18th conspiracy this year, but he was convinced of it. And he started to interact with some other prominent right-wing figures who also love to find conspiracies. And then they turned on him. He didn't expect that. They turned on him. And he had prominent right-wing figures like Candace Owens saying she thought Phil Lyman was involved in the cover-up of this multiple shooter conspiracy theory. Spencer Cox went to his defense. He said, I have no fondness for Phil and the things he said about me and made up about me and my family. He is absolutely not involved in any way in the Charlie Kirk assassination. And to quote the governor, you're a jackass if you think so. So he lost some points for that word, but on the dignity scale, he'd score an 8 because he was standing up for Phil's humanity. He was refusing to dehumanize someone who I'm sure he has no love for in the real world because of the things Phil has made up about him. But he went to bat for him. He stood up against, a Republican governor stood up against some prominent right-wing figures and said, this is silly, leave Phil alone. Now, Phil brought it on himself for dipping his toes into this online world because it's the way it almost always plays out. But the governor scored an 8 on the Dignity Index. That's a great way to explain how the Dignity Index works. So again, it's not a lecture. It's not a superficial call for civility. It is just a ranking scale. Yesterday, they had this big conference in Salt Lake. They talked about the September 28th fire and truck crashed into the Latter-day Saint Meeting House in Michigan. They talked about the assassination of a Democratic state lawmaker in Minnesota back in June and an attempted assassination on one of her colleagues. They even killed her family dog and her husband in that assassination. The Charlie Kirk assassination at Utah Valley University back in September as well. And they talked about all this, and they said, what can we do? A lot of the conversation was around building, quote, networks of trust, social capital and networks of trust. But what stood out to me even more is that Tim Shriver, who is behind the Unite Foundation that developed this Dignity Index, and he said the reason he developed this is he said, I want people to reflect on their own contribution to this. It was the first time I've heard anyone say, we have our own responsibility here. It's not enough for politicians or politicos or all of us with our social media accounts to nod and about the sad state of things if we're contributing to it. And that message alone, I absolutely love. Shriver said the average American is funding the culture of outrage and hatred, and we need to just stop. He said, this isn't progressives or conservatives alone. He said, I hate to disappoint conservatives, but it's not just liberals who are full of hate. Have you seen what's going on Twitter? And he says, I hate to disappoint the progressives and liberals because it's not just conservatives, because have you seen what you've been up to on Bluesky? We're all part of the problem. And until we accept that responsibility, it's likely not going to get fixed. Probably the best message I have ever heard along these lines. check it out. Deseret News has a great write-up on this. There's video online I've linked to, and we're actually going to get some USU students who attended the conference, students involved with the debate club, and get their reaction to the conference yesterday. That will be coming up early next week. We'll be back with more For the People right after this.
AM 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Do you suffer from consistent symptoms like these, and no matter how many doctors you see, things don't improve?
I definitely had fatigue and unexplained weight gain, brain fog, my joints hurt, and I just didn't feel like me. The last couple of years, I just had doctors telling me, oh, you're over 40, we can put you on prescriptions, and I just knew that wasn't what I wanted.
In a conventional model, it's typically one size fits all. Everyone's herded around like sheep and treated the exact same way. When they come to Red River, it's important to customize the treatment plan for that specific patient.
Talking with Dr. Swindlehurst, I just immediately felt like he was listening. He had a plan for me individually as a human being.
Our whole goal is to identify the underlying mechanisms driving your condition. Then we'll put a treatment plan together that's specific to you, and then slowly teach you and educate you and show you what to do and what not to do so that you're the expert in your own health long term.
Call Red River Health and Wellness at 855-55-RIVER.
Call Red River today.
Everyone has an estate, but do you have an estate plan? This is Jace Allen, Northern Utah's estate planning attorney. At Allen Law Office, wills and trusts are what we do. If you've been putting it off, now is the time to get it done. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones, protect your legacy, protect your assets. Start today at cashlegal.com or just search Allen Law Office. Wills and trusts are what we do. Allen Law Office.
That's it for hour one of today's show, but coming up in hour two, outgoing council member Barbara Tidwell going to bat for a proposed salary increase for council members. I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one, despite the budget shortfall and more, and say there might be a good reason for this. She might make a good point. We'll kick things off, though, in hour two, though, with a very special guest here in the studio, Caden Madsen. Caden is with an organization that is sure to be a big part of the upcoming legislative session called the Global Center for AI and Digital Policy, something lawmakers here in Utah are trying to wrap their heads around. Where and how to put some guardrails on artificial intelligence, and should they even? That's next here on